The gray dust fell like snow across the dying city of Veltara. Mira pressed her hand against the observation window and watched as another building crumbled into nothing. The plague they called the Gray Death had reached the outer districts 3 days ago. Now it was eating through the heart of their greatest city. "How long do we have?" asked Elder Vex from behind her. His voice was tired, older than his 800 years should have made him sound. Mira did not turn around. She could not bear to see the defeat in his ancient eyes. "The medical center fell this morning. The university will be gone by sunset. After that—" She let her words trail off. They both knew what came after that. The Gray Death was not like any disease the Villani had ever seen. It did not kill slowly, or show mercy to the young or old. It simply consumed. Organic matter touched by the gray dust turned to more gray dust within hours. Trees, grass, food, people. Nothing could stop it. Mira had spent the last 30 days trying to find a cure. She was the chief science advisor for their world, the smartest person left alive on Cathara Prime. But the Gray Death was not natural. Someone had made it. Someone had designed it specifically to kill her people. "The other colonies?" Elder Vex asked. "Kethmara fell yesterday. Veldrian 2 days before that." Mira finally turned to face him. "We are the last." Elder Vex nodded, slowly. He had expected this news, but hearing it still hit him like a physical blow. The Villani had built a civilization that lasted for 10,000 years. They had created art that could make flowers bloom with music. They had developed medicine that could heal any wound, cure any sickness, until now. "Then it is time," he said. Mira knew what he meant. They had debated this for weeks as world after world went silent. The final message. The last song of their people cast into the dark space between stars. "The council said no," she reminded him. "The council is dead, Elder," Vex replied. "I am the last Elder. The decision is mine alone." They walked through empty halls that once buzzed with activity. The great palace had housed 1,000 workers just a week ago. Now only a dozen remained, all of them working on the final message. In the communications center, Chief Operator Nala looked up as they entered. Her skin had the pale color that came from too little sleep and too much fear. "The array is ready," she said. "Full power across all frequencies." "Good," said Elder Vex. He moved to the recording station and placed his hands on the bio interfaces. The Villani technology responded to his touch, coming alive with soft pulses of light. "I will record our history first," he said to Mira. "Our achievements, our art, our science, then our final days. Someone should know we existed. Someone should—" "Remember," Mira nodded. It was all they could do now, all they had left. Elder Vex began to speak, and the machines recorded everything. He told the story of his people, how they had grown from simple farmers to masters of biological science, how they had learned to work with life itself, creating tools and buildings that were grown rather than built, how they had spread to 12 worlds and made each one a garden. He spoke for hours, painting a picture of a peaceful civilization that had never known war, never conquered others, never destroyed for the sake of power. The Villani had simply wanted to understand life in all its forms. Then he told of the Gray Death's arrival, how it had appeared first on their outer colonies with no warning, how their greatest scientists had tried and failed to stop it, how world after world had gone silent until only Cathara Prime remained. "We do not know who did this to us," Elder Vex said into the recorder. "We do not know why. We were not warriors. We had no enemies. Perhaps that was our weakness. We trusted too much. We believed that all life was precious." He paused, his voice breaking. "If anyone receives this message, know that we tried. We tried to save our people, our worlds, our way of life. We failed. But we tried until the very end. The recording finished. Around the communication center, the few remaining Villani prepared for the broadcast. They had built this array to talk with their colonies. Now it would carry their death song to the stars. Far across the galaxy, on a human research ship called the Soul's Dream, Dr. Han Wu was conducting his nightly scan of deep space transmissions. It was boring work, but someone had to monitor the radio waves for signs of other civilizations. Most nights brought nothing but cosmic noise, the random signals from distant stars and spinning planets. But tonight was different. His instruments detected something new, a powerful transmission from a system they had never studied. Han Wu was about to classify it as another natural phenomenon when he noticed the patterns. This was not random noise. This was structured, organized, artificial. This was a signal from another species. He called Captain Li Bo-Ram to the communications center. She arrived still wearing her sleep clothes, her hair uncombed. "What is it, Han?" "Listen to this," he said, playing back part of the transmission. Strange musical sounds filled the room. It was clearly language, but unlike any human tongue. "How far away?" Captain Li asked. 47 light years. The signal is incredibly powerful. They must be using enormous amounts of energy to broadcast this far. Captain Li frowned. "Why would they do that? Who are they trying to reach?" Han Wu worked through the night translating what he could. The alien language was complex, but mathematical concepts provided a foundation. Numbers were numbers, no matter what species used them. By morning, he had decoded enough to understand the message's true meaning. He found Captain Li in her quarters, drinking coffee and reading the night reports. "Captain," he said, his voice shaking, "you need to see this." He showed her his translation notes. The words were simple but terrible. Final message. Gray death spreading. All colonies lost. We are dying. Remember us. Captain Li read the notes twice, then looked up at Han Wu. "This is a distress call?" "More than that," Han Wu replied. "It's a funeral song. They're not asking for help. They think it's too late. They just want someone to know they existed." Captain Li was quiet for a long moment. The Soul's Dream was a research vessel, not a military ship. They had a crew of only 200 people and limited supplies. They were 47 light years from Earth, farther from home than any human had traveled before. "Plot a course for their system," she said finally. "Captain, you heard me. Plot a course. Full speed." "But Captain, we don't even know if they're still alive. The transmission could be days old, weeks old. By the time we get there, then we'll be too late," Captain Li interrupted. "But we'll still go. We'll still try." Han Wu stared at her. "You want to travel 47 light years to help people we've never met? People who might already be dead?" Captain Li nodded. "Send them a message, Han. Tell them..." She paused, thinking. "Tell them we received their message. Tell them we're coming. What should I say about who we are? Tell them we're human. Tell them no one should have to die alone." The message was short and simple. Han Wu sent it with the ship's most powerful transmitter, hoping it would reach the aliens before it was too late. On Cathera Prime, the few surviving Villani huddled in their dying city. They had broadcast their final message and expected nothing. In return, the universe was vast and empty. They had always known they would die in silence. Then Mira's instruments detected something impossible. A return signal. Someone had heard them. Someone was answering. She ran to tell Elder Vex, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in weeks, she felt something she had thought lost forever. Hope. Mira could not believe what she was seeing on her screen. The message was clear and simple. "This is Captain Li Bo-Ram of the human vessel Soul's Dream. We received your message. We're coming." Humans? Elder Vex asked, reading over her shoulder. I have never heard of this species. Neither have I, Mira replied. She ran the message through their database of known civilizations. Nothing came up. These humans were completely unknown to them. More messages began arriving, not just from the Soul's Dream, but from other human ships across space. Each one carried the same basic message. We heard you. We are coming to help. How many ships? Elder Vex asked. Mira counted the signals. 12 so far. No, 15. 20. She looked up at him with wide eyes. Elder, they are coming from 3 different star systems. This species has spread far across the galaxy. On Earth, Admiral Park Jin-soo stood in the Fleet Command Center watching the massive screens that showed human ships across known space. Red dots marked vessels that were changing course toward the Vellani system. The number kept growing. Sir, said his aide, Commander Yoon Tae-ho, we have 43 ships now committed to the rescue mission. More are asking for permission to join. Admiral Park studied the tactical display. The Vellani system was far from any human world. Getting there would require long jumps through dangerous space. Many of the ships volunteering were civilian vessels. Research ships, cargo haulers, even private yachts. What do we know about this Gray Death? He asked. Commander Yoon consulted his data pad. Dr. Kim So-ra's team has been analyzing the alien transmissions. The plague appears to be synthetic, artificially created. It breaks down organic matter at the molecular level. Very advanced bioweapon. Created by who? Unknown. The Vellani claim they have no enemies, but someone wanted them, dead badly enough to engineer a plague specifically designed to kill their species. Admiral Park frowned. That meant whoever created the Gray Death might still be out there. Any rescue mission would be walking into a potential trap. Sir, another officer called out, we're getting reports of alien ships in the Vellani system. Not Vellani signatures. Show me. The main screen changed to display long-range sensor data from their closest monitoring station. Strange ship signatures appeared near the Vellani homeworld. The vessels were large and moved in precise military formations. Hegemony design, Commander Yoon said after analyzing the data. I've seen these ship types in intelligence reports. They're a military alliance from the outer galaxy. Very aggressive. Admiral Park understood immediately. The Hegemony had created the Gray Death. They were not just destroying the Vellani. They were watching to make sure the job was finished. Change of mission, he announced. This is no longer just a rescue operation. We may be going to war. Dr. Kim So-ra worked in her laboratory aboard the research station Hope's Light, studying every piece of information the Vellani had sent about the Gray Death. She was Earth's leading expert in synthetic biology and bioweapons, but this plague was unlike anything she had ever seen. It's brilliant, she said to her assistant, Dr. Choi Hyejin. And terrible. The plague is designed specifically for the Vellani biological structure. It targets their cellular repair mechanisms. Can we stop it? Dr. Choi asked. Maybe. The Vellani use symbiotic organisms in their bodies, tiny life forms that help them process food and fight disease. The Gray Death turns these helpers into enemies. But if we can understand how... An alert chimed on her computer. New data was coming in. From the Vellani system. Dr. Kim opened the files and gasped. What is it? Dr. Choi asked. The plague is evolving. It's not just killing the Vellani anymore. It's starting to attack their planet's ecosystem. The trees, the grass, even the bacteria in the soil. Dr. Choi stared at the data. That's impossible. Diseases don't work that way. This one does. Someone programmed it to adapt. In a few more days, the entire planet will be dead rock. On the Soul's Dream, Captain Lee Bo-ram gathered her senior officers in the briefing room. The ship was pushing its engines to maximum speed, but it would still take weeks to reach the Vellani system. Status report, she said as they sat down. Engineering. Reports all systems normal. said Chief Engineer Lim Da-un. "But we're burning fuel fast. We'll need to refuel before we can make the return trip." "Communications?" Captain Lee asked. "Still receiving Villani transmissions," Han Wu replied. "But they're getting weaker. The plague has reached their main cities. Their population has dropped from billions to millions in just the past few days." Captain Lee felt sick. Even traveling at maximum speed, they might arrive to find only empty worlds. "What about the hegemony ships?" she asked. 37 vessels in the system," reported Lieutenant Park Yoon-ji, their tactical officer. "They're maintaining a blockade around the planet. Any ship trying to leave or arrive will have to go through them." "Our orders?" Lieutenant Park smiled grimly. Admiral Park's message was clear. Get our people to that planet whatever the cost. The hegemony ships are secondary targets. Back on Cathera Prime, the situation was growing desperate. Mira worked in a temporary command center set up in the mountains, far from the spreading gray death. But even here, gray dust was beginning to fall from the sky. "The northern continent is gone," reported Joran, a young Villani who served as their communications officer. "No more signals from any city there." "The southern continent?" Elder Vex asked. 3 cities left, maybe 200,000 people total. Mira looked at their population counter. 3 days ago, it had shown 800 million Villani alive on their homeworld. Now it read less than 500,000 and was dropping every hour. "The humans?" she asked. Joran checked his instruments. "Still coming. Their lead ships will arrive in 18 days. "We don't have 18 days, Mira said quietly. Elder Vex moved to the communications array. "Send another message to the humans. Tell them about the hegemony ships. Warn them this might be a trap." "Elder," Mira protested, "if we warn them away, then they live and we die, which was always going to happen anyway. But I will not have their deaths on our conscience." The message went out across space. When Captain Lee received it, she shared it with her officers. "The Villani are warning us off," she said. "They say the hegemony might be using them as bait to trap human ships." "Could be true," said Lieutenant Park. "It's a classic tactic." "Doesn't matter," Chief Engineer Lim said firmly. "We gave our word. We told them we were coming." Captain Lee nodded. "That's how I see it too. Signal the other ships. We maintain course and speed." In space, the growing human fleet continued toward the Villani system. Research ships, military vessels, cargo haulers, and private ships all flying together toward an unknown enemy. They carried doctors, scientists, engineers, and soldiers. They carried medicine, food, weapons, and hope. Most importantly, they carried the single human trait that puzzled other species throughout the galaxy: the refusal to let strangers die alone. The hegemony commander Thex watched the approaching human fleet on his tactical displays. He had never heard of this species before, but their ships were primitive compared to hegemony technology. "How many?" he asked his tactical officer. 47 ships, sir. Mixed types. They appear to be a rescue fleet, not military." "Commander," Thex laughed. "Rescue fleet? The Villani will be extinct before they arrive. Signal all ships. When the humans enter the system, destroy them all. Let this be a lesson to any other species that might interfere with hegemony operations." But as the human fleet drew closer, Commander Thex began to notice something strange. These primitive ships were not following standard military doctrine. They flew in formations designed to protect medical vessels rather than maximize firepower. Their transmissions showed they were more concerned with saving lives than winning battles. What kind of species, he wondered aloud, travels across the galaxy to help complete strangers? His tactical officer had no answer. Neither did he. But in 18 days, they would all find out what humans were willing to do when innocent people needed help. The first human ships arrived at the edge of the Villani system to find a wall of hegemony warships waiting for them. Captain Lee Boram studied the tactical display on the Soul's Dream and counted 37 enemy vessels. They were massive, dark ships that looked like they were built for killing. "Signal from the Hegemony Fleet," reported Han Wu from his communications station. "They're ordering us to leave the system immediately." "Any word from the planet?" Captain Lee asked. "Weak signals. The Volani population is down to less than 200,000. The Gray Death has reached their mountain cities." Captain Lee felt her heart sink. They had traveled across the galaxy, but they might still be too late. "Send a message to all human ships. We're going in." The human fleet was much smaller than the Hegemony force. 47 ships against 37, but the Hegemony vessels were military warships, while most of the human fleet were civilian vessels hastily converted for the rescue mission. Commander Thex watched the approaching humans from his flagship. He could not understand their behavior. Any sensible species would have turned around and fled when faced with superior firepower. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human fleet is not forming an attack formation. They're protecting. They're medical ships?" Commander Thex looked at his screens in confusion. The humans were arranging their combat vessels in a defensive shell around cargo ships and hospital vessels. It was the formation of a people more interested in saving lives than taking them. "Fire warning shots," he ordered. "Show them what real warships can do." The Hegemony ships opened fire, sending bright energy beams across the human fleet's path. The humans did not turn away. Instead, they began broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Park Jin-soo of the Human Deep Space Fleet," came the transmission. "We are here on a humanitarian mission. We will not leave while people are dying on the planet below." "Humanitarian mission?" Commander Thex said to his officers. "What does that mean?" Nobody could answer him. The Hegemony had conquered dozens of species over the centuries. They had never encountered one that traveled across space just to help strangers. The space battle began when human fighters launched from their carriers and streaked toward the planet. The Hegemony ships moved to intercept, but the human pilots flew like no military force Commander Thex had ever seen. They did not try to destroy the Hegemony ships. Instead, they focused entirely on creating gaps in the blockade so their medical vessels could reach the planet. "They're not fighting to win," his tactical officer observed. "They're fighting to get through." On the surface of Cathara Prime, Major Kang Min-ho led the first human ground teams to land on the dying world. His transport ship had fought through the space battle above and landed in the mountains where the last Volani survivors had gathered. The scene that greeted him was worse than any nightmare. Gray dust covered everything like dirty snow. Trees stood like gray skeletons against a dark sky. In the distance, he could see where entire cities had been consumed, leaving nothing but empty craters. "Medical teams, set up field hospitals immediately," he ordered over his radio. "Security teams, establish a perimeter. Science teams, start collecting samples of this plague." Dr. Choi Hye-jin was among the first humans to make contact with the Volani survivors. She found them huddled in cave systems, afraid to go outside where the Gray Death was spreading. "We're here to help," she told them through her translation device. But the Volani just stared at her with large, frightened eyes. It was a young Volani named Jorin who finally approached her. "You are the humans?" he asked. "The ones who answered our message?" "Yes," Dr. Choi replied. "We came as fast as we could." Jorin looked at her with wonder. "But why? We are strangers to you. Our worlds are far apart. Why would you risk your lives for us?" Dr. Choi paused, trying to find words that would translate properly. "Because no one should have to face death alone," she said finally. "Because every life matters." Jorin led Dr. Choi to the temporary Volani command center where Mira and Elder Vex were coordinating their people's final days. When they saw the human doctor, Elder Vex's ancient eyes filled with tears. "You really came," he whispered. "We gave our word," Dr. Choi replied simply. Mira showed Dr. Choi their research on the Gray Death. The human doctor studied the data with growing alarm. The plague was even worse than Earth scientists had realized. "It's not just killing your people," Dr. Choi explained. "It's learning from them. Every person it consumes teaches it how to kill more efficiently. At this rate, the entire planet will be dead in 3 days." "Can you stop it?" Mira asked. Dr. Choi was quiet for a long moment. "Maybe, but I need to understand how your people's biology works. Your symbiotic organisms, your cellular repair systems, everything." Joran volunteered to help. He was young and eager, fascinated by these strange humans who had traveled so far just to help his people. As Dr. Choi worked, he explained how Villani biotechnology functioned. "We don't fight disease like you do," he said. "We work with it. We negotiate with the tiny life forms in our bodies. We make agreements with them." "Agreements?" Dr. Choi asked. "Yes, we give them what they need, and they help keep us healthy. It has worked for thousands of years." Dr. Choi began to understand. Villani medicine was the complete opposite of human medicine. Where humans attacked disease with drugs and surgery, the Villani made partnerships with the microscopic life in their bodies. The Gray Death breaks those partnerships, she realized. It turns your helpers into enemies. Above them, the space battle continued to rage. Human ships were taking heavy losses, but they kept fighting. Not to destroy the hegemony fleet, but to keep the supply lines open to the planet below. Captain Ro Sung-min piloted his fighter through a storm of enemy fire, protecting a medical supply ship as it descended toward the planet. His ship was hit twice, systems failing, but he stayed in formation until the supply ship was safely away. "All human vessels," came Admiral Park's voice over the radio, "maintain defensive positions. Protect the medical ships at all costs." Commander Thex watched the battle with growing frustration. His ships were clearly superior, but the humans refused to fight properly. They took devastating losses but never retreated. They seemed to care more about getting their doctors to the planet than about military victory. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've destroyed 12 human combat vessels, but their medical ships keep getting through. They're treating our blockade like an obstacle instead of a battle." On the planet's surface, Major Kang's teams discovered something important. In the ruins of a Villani research facility, they found intact data about the Gray Death's origin. "It's definitely hegemony technology," he reported to Dr. Choi. "But there's something else. The plague has a control system. Someone can turn it, on and off remotely." Dr. Choi looked up from her work with the Villani biological samples. "A kill switch?" "Exactly. But it's on the hegemony command ship. Someone would have to get aboard and access their computer systems directly." "That's suicide," Mira said. "Hegemony technology is designed to kill any organic being that tries to interface with it." Major Kang nodded grimly. "That's why they built it that way, to prevent exactly what we need to do." In space, the battle was reaching a critical point. Human ships continued to fall under hegemony fire, but their sacrifice was allowing more medical teams to reach the planet. Dr. Choi worked frantically with Joran and the other Villani scientists, trying to develop a treatment for the Gray Death. "I think I have something," she announced after hours of desperate work. "Not a cure, but a treatment, something that can slow the plague's spread." "How long?" Elder Vex asked. "Days. Maybe weeks. But it won't stop the Gray Death completely. We need that kill switch." Above them, engineer Lim Da-un aboard the Soul's Dream was studying the data about the hegemony control systems. She was the fleet's best computer specialist, and she understood what everyone else was afraid to say. Someone would have to sacrifice their life to save the Villani. Someone would have to connect directly to alien technology that was designed to kill them. "Captain," she said to Captain Lee, "I volunteer for the interface mission." Captain Lee looked at her with sad eyes. "Lim, you know what that means." "Yes, Captain. I know. But look at what we've accomplished. We've come farther than any human has traveled before. We've made contact with a dying species and offered them hope. Now we have a chance to actually save them." She looked out at the battle raging around them, at the human ships taking hit after hit but never retreating. "We didn't come this far just to turn back now," she said firmly. "We came to save. Lives, all of them." Engineer Lim Da-un stood in the equipment bay of the Soul's Dream, putting on the special suit that would protect her during the mission. Around her, the ship's crew worked quietly, preparing the small stealth craft that would carry her to the Hegemony command ship. "The interface cables are ready," reported Chief Technician Park Myung-ho. "But remember, the moment you connect to their systems, the alien technology will start attacking your nervous system." Lim nodded as she checked her equipment one final time. "How long do I have?" "Maybe 5 minutes before the neural feedback becomes fatal. Maybe less." Captain Ro Sung-min walked over from where he had been preparing the stealth ship Busan Runner. "The ship is ready. I've plotted a course that should get us close to their command vessel without being detected." "Should?" Lim asked with a small smile. "Will," Captain Ro corrected. "I'll get you there, Lim. I promise." On the surface of Cathara Prime, Dr. Choi Hye-jin worked with Mira and the other Vellani scientists in their temporary laboratory. They had managed to create a treatment that could slow the Grey Death, but time was running out. "How many people can we save with this?" Mira asked, looking at their limited supply of the treatment. "Maybe 50,000, Dr. Choi replied. "It's not enough for everyone, but it will buy us time." Young Joran looked up from the biological samples he was studying. "There might be another way. Our genetic archives, they contain the complete biological patterns of our entire species." Elder Vex, who had been quietly listening, suddenly straightened. "The Sacred Vault. I had forgotten." "What is the Sacred Vault?" Dr. Choi asked. "Our most protected technology," Elder Vex explained. "Deep beneath the old capital city, we stored the genetic information of every Vellani who ever lived. If that data survives, our species can be restored even if we all die." Mira stared at him. "Elder, the old capital is in the center of the Grey Death Zone. It's been consumed for days." "The vault is built to survive anything," Elder Vex said firmly. "But someone would have to go down there to retrieve the data, through kilometers of Grey Death contamination." Major Kang Min-ho, who had been coordinating the evacuation efforts, joined their conversation. "My teams could make the attempt." "It would be suicide," Mira said. "The concentration of Grey Death around the old capital would kill anyone in minutes." "Then we use environmental suits," Major Kang replied. "We've brought equipment designed for the worst biological hazards." Dr. Choi looked at the tactical display showing the areas consumed by the plague. The old capital was a gray wasteland where nothing lived. "Even with suits, the Grey Death might find a way through. It adapts to everything." "We have to try," Major Kang said simply. "If that genetic data exists, it's the difference between saving 50,000 Vellani and saving their entire species." In space above them, the battle continued to rage. Human ships fought desperately to keep the supply lines open while taking heavy casualties from the superior hegemony forces. "Commander." Thex watched the battle from his command ship and shook his head in confusion. "They've lost half their combat vessels, but they keep fighting. What drives these humans?" His tactical officer studied the human fleet movements. "Sir, they're not trying to destroy us. Every action they take is designed to protect their medical ships and supply vessels." "I can see that. But why? The planet below is dying anyway. In a few hours, there will be nothing left to save." Below them, undetected in the chaos of battle, the small stealth ship Busan Runner crept closer to the Hegemony command vessel. Captain Ro Sung-min piloted the tiny craft through the debris field left by destroyed ships. "There," he said to Lim Da-yun. "The command ship. I can get you close to their docking bay, but once you're inside, you're on your own. Lim checked her equipment one final time. The interface cables, the portable computer that would hopefully survive the alien technology, and the small explosive charge that would destroy the evidence after she was done. Lim, Captain Rowe said quietly, you don't have to do this. We could find another way. She looked at him with calm eyes. What other way? We've traveled across the galaxy to save these people. We've lost friends in the battle above. We're not going to stop now because the final step is dangerous. The Busan runner docked with the hegemony ship. Lim made her way through the alien corridors, following the layout that human intelligence had pieced together. The hegemony technology was strange and hostile, with walls that seemed to pulse with dark energy. She found the central computer core. After 20 minutes of careful movement, it was a massive chamber filled with organic-looking technology that hurt to look at directly. This is it, she whispered into her radio, beginning the interface procedure. On Cathara Prime, Major Kang led his team toward the ruins of the old capital. They wore the heaviest environmental suits the human fleet could provide, but the Gray Death was everywhere around them. Contamination levels are off the charts, reported Sergeant Kim Do-hyun. The suits are holding for now, but I don't know for how long. How far to the vault? Major Kang asked Jorin, who had insisted on guiding them despite the danger. 2 kilometers through the city center, the young Villani replied. The entrance is beneath the old council building. They moved through streets that had once been beautiful, but were now covered in gray dust. Buildings stood like empty shells, their walls eaten away by the plague. The silence was complete and terrible. Movement ahead, called Private Lee Sunmi from point position. Something's coming through the dust. They raised their weapons, but what emerged from the gray fog was not an enemy. It was a group of Villani survivors, barely alive, stumbling through the contaminated city. We have to help them, Major Kang said immediately. Sir, Sergeant Kim protested, we don't have enough suits for civilians, and our mission is to save lives, Major Kang interrupted. All lives. They shared their limited medical supplies with the Villani survivors and helped them back to the clean zones before continuing toward the vault. High above, in the hegemony command ship, Engineer Lim Da-yoon began connecting her interface cables to the alien computer system. The moment the connection was made, she felt the hostile technology invading her mind. Pain shot through her nervous system as the hegemony computers tried to kill her. But she held on, forcing her way through their security systems toward the plague control protocols. I'm in, she gasped over her radio. I can see the Gray Death control system, but the neural feedback is getting stronger. On the surface, Elder Vex made a decision that surprised everyone. The ancient Villani leader stood up from his position in the command center. I'm going with Major Kang's team, he announced. Elder, you can't, Mira protested. You're too old for such a dangerous mission. I am the last elder of the Villani Council, he replied firmly. The sacred vault will only open for someone of my rank. They need me. Dr. Choi looked at his determined face and nodded. Then we'll all go. If this is humanity's final gift to your people, we should all be there to see it. In the hegemony ship, Lim's hands shook as the alien technology continued. Its assault on her mind. Blood ran from her nose, and her vision was starting to blur. Found it, she whispered. The kill switch, but it's protected by multiple security layers. How long do you need? Captain Rowe's voice came through her radio. 5 minutes, maybe 10. The security is incredible. You don't have 10 minutes, he replied sadly. Your vital signs are failing. Lim smiled through the pain. Then I'll work faster. Below on the planet, Major Kang's team reached the entrance to the sacred vault. Elder Vex placed his hand on the ancient biolock, and the massive doors opened to reveal a chamber that had somehow survived the Gray Death. The genetic archives, Elder Vex said with wonder. They're intact, Inside the vault, millions of data crystals contained the complete biological history of the Volani species. Not just the living, but all those who had ever lived. "How do we move all of this?" Major Kang asked. "We don't have to," Joran said, working at a control panel. "I can compress the entire database into a single portable unit. It will take a few minutes." Above them, Engineer Lim fought against the alien technology that was slowly killing her. She had broken through the first security layer and was working on the second when her hands began to shake uncontrollably. "Lim," came Captain Lee's voice. Over the radio, "Your medical readings are critical. You need to abort." "Almost there," she replied, her voice weak but determined. "The Volani children won't die on my watch." She broke through the final security layer and found the Grey Death's kill switch. Her finger hovered over the control, knowing that activating it would probably kill her instantly. "Tell them," she whispered into her radio. "Tell them it worked. Tell them the plague is dead." She pressed the button. Across Cathara Prime, the Grey Death suddenly stopped spreading. The terrible gray dust that had consumed a world simply stopped moving, stopped converting, stopped killing. Engineer Lim Daon died with a smile on her face, knowing that an entire species would live because she had been brave enough to sacrifice everything for strangers she had never met. 6 months after the Grey Death stopped spreading across Cathara Prime, Mira stood in the place where her greatest city had once been. But now, instead of gray dust and empty ruins, she saw something wonderful. Green shoots of new grass pushed through the soil. Small trees grew where buildings had once stood. Life was returning to her world. "The restoration is going better than we hoped," said Dr. Kim So-ra, walking up beside her. The human scientist had stayed behind when most of the rescue fleet returned to Earth. "Your people's genetic archives contained everything we needed to rebuild the ecosystem." Mira nodded, watching young Volani children play in the new gardens. There were so few of them left. Only 10,000 had survived the Grey Death. But with the genetic archives from the Sacred Vault, Dr. Kim and the Volani scientists were slowly rebuilding their population. "Your people saved more than just our lives," Mira said. "You saved our future." In the rebuilt Volani capital, Ambassador Park Yun-ji worked in her new office. She was the first human diplomatic representative to the Volani, helping to coordinate the ongoing rebuilding efforts. Her walls were covered with artwork from both species, human paintings alongside Volani biosculptures that grew and changed with the seasons. A chime announced a visitor. Joran entered, but he looked very different from the frightened young Volani who had huddled in the mountain caves months ago. He now wore a uniform that combined Volani biotechnology with human military design. He had become something new, the first Volani soldier. "Ambassador," he said, "we've received another distress call." Park Yun-ji looked up from her reports. "From where?" "The Centauri system, a species called the Keldari. They're under attack by something called the Swarm. They're asking for help." "And?" the ambassador asked, though she already knew what Joran was going to say. "The new Volani Republic has voted to respond. We want to help them." Ambassador Park smiled. In the months since their salvation, the Volani had changed in fundamental ways. They were still the same peaceful, life-loving people they had always been. But they had learned something new from humanity, that sometimes you had to fight to protect what you loved. "How many ships can you spare?" she asked. 12. They're not much compared to human warships, but they have new biotechnology based on what we learned fighting the Grey Death. We think we can help." Across the galaxy, the news of what humans had done at Cathara Prime was spreading from species to species. On 100 worlds, civilizations that had never heard of humanity were learning about the race that would travel across space to help complete strangers. Admiral Park Jin-soo stood in Fleet Command on Earth, watching the tactical display that showed human ships throughout known space. But now they were not alone. Volani bioships traveled alongside human vessels. Other species had begun to volunteer for rescue missions. "Sir," Commander Yoon Tai-ho reported, "we have 43 active rescue operations underway. The Volani are leading 12 of them. The Altarians have committed their medical fleet to 6 more. Even some former hegemony worlds are asking to join." Admiral Park studied the display. In the months since Cathara Prime, something had changed in the galaxy. Species that had never worked together were forming alliances based on a simple principle: no one should have to face extinction alone. "What about the hegemony themselves?" he asked. "Their military is in chaos. After Commander Thex's defeat at Cathara Prime, their subject worlds began rebelling. They're fighting civil wars on a dozen fronts." The defeat of the hegemony fleet had shocked the galaxy. Not because humans had superior weapons, they did not, but because humans had fought for something the hegemony could not understand: the lives of strangers. On Cathara Prime, Dr. Choi Hye-jin worked in her new laboratory, a building that was part human technology and part Volani bioarchitecture. She was no longer just treating the survivors of the Grey Death. She was helping to create something new. "The symbiotic enhancement is working," she told her research partner, Mira. "The new generation of Volani will be immune to synthetic plagues like the Grey Death." "And the human volunteers?" Mira asked. Dr. Choi smiled. 23 humans have successfully integrated Volani symbiotic organisms. They're healthier and stronger than baseline humans. The biological merger between our species is proceeding better than we hoped. It had been Joran's idea originally. If humans and Volani could share technology, why not biology? The first volunteers had been human doctors who wanted to better understand Volani physiology. Now there were humans with Volani biological enhancements, and Volani with human immune system modifications. Elder Vex, now the leader of the new Volani Republic, called them the Bridge Generation, people who carried the best traits of both species. In the former hegemony territories, word spread of the strange alliance between humans and Volani. Species that had lived in fear of the hegemony for centuries began to believe that freedom was possible. Captain Ro Sung-min, now commanding a mixed human-Volani fleet, received a transmission from a world called Nexari Prime. The message was simple. "We heard what you did at Cathara Prime. We need help. Our oppressors think we are too weak to resist. Will you come?" His response was immediate. "This is Captain Ro of the Human Volani Liberation Fleet. We received your message. We're coming!" The pattern was repeating across the galaxy. Desperate calls for help were being answered not by one species, but by a growing alliance of civilizations that had adopted what they called the human doctrine. Back on Earth, in the halls of the Global Council, leaders debated humanity's new role in galactic affairs. Some worried about the cost of so many rescue missions. Others argued that humanity was getting involved in conflicts they did not understand. But the majority supported the rescue operations. They had seen what happened when good people stood together against those who would destroy entire species. "We are not trying to build an empire," said President Kim Na-young in her address to the council. "We are trying to build something better, a galaxy where no one has to face extinction alone." On Cathara Prime, a memorial was built to honor the humans who had died saving the Volani. Engineer Lim Da-eun's name was carved at the top, along with the names of all the human crew members who had sacrificed their lives in the battle against the hegemony. But the memorial was not just about death. It was about life. Surrounding the stone monument, Volani bioartists had grown a garden that would live forever. Trees that bore fruit from both Earth and Cathara Prime. Flowers that bloomed in colors neither species had seen before. Young Volani children played in that garden every day. They did not fully understand what the memorial meant, but they knew it was important. They knew that strangers from across the galaxy had cared enough about them to risk everything. Mira often visited the memorial in the evenings. She would sit, beneath the Earth Cathara trees, and remember the dark days when her people faced extinction. Now, she watched Villani and human children play together, speaking languages that mixed both cultures. "Did we do the right thing?" she asked Ambassador Park one evening as they sat together in the memorial garden. "What do you mean?" the human diplomat replied. "By accepting your help. By changing our entire civilization. We are not the same people. We were before the Gray Death." Ambassador Park was quiet for a moment, watching the children play. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Happier than I ever dreamed possible. Then yes, we did the right thing." Across the galaxy, other species were learning the same lesson, that sometimes salvation came from the most unexpected places, that sometimes the greatest strength was the willingness to help others, even when it cost everything. The hegemony had built their empire on fear and superior technology, but they had never understood the most powerful force in the universe, the refusal of good people to let evil triumph. In the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not their weapons or their technology, but their example. The proof that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they chose to stand together. The last entry in Admiral Park Jin-Soo's official log read, "Today we received our 100th request for assistance from species across the galaxy. The age of isolation is over. The age of cooperation has begun. And it all started with a simple message. We received your call for help. We're coming." The memorial garden on Cathara Prime grew larger each year, as did the Alliance of Species, committed to the human doctrine. The galaxy had learned that no one had to face the darkness alone, and in that lesson, perhaps, lay the beginning of something greater than any empire, a civilization based not on conquest, but on the simple idea that every life mattered, and every cry for help deserved an answer.